want you to prepare yourself for a great word from the Lord just for you. Please like and share. I know you're going to enjoy this message. Prepare yourself. Get your paper and pen if you believe you need it. Let's get ready to go into the message. In Hong Kong, that an auction was going on, and after they had auctioned off so many paintings, different artifacts, one particular thing came up for auction. It was a clay vessel, a clay vessel. The auctioneer began to go off with all of the different bids, and this particular clay vessel was glazed over. At the end of that auction, this clay vessel was sold for $6.7 million. I started looking around the house. It was the highest vessel sold, it says, in history for that type of vessel at an auction. The most expensive vessel, $6.7 million. But actually, I don't know if we should pay that much for the vessel, because the vessel is simply a container. What do you put in a $6.7 million vessel that makes the vessel worth anything? Somebody would say it's what's put in the vessel that ought to be really worth something. I think Paul brings something similar out in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, in particular verse 7. Would you turn there with me? I'm going to just stick with that verse. If you have it, say, I have it. It says, but we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellence of the power may be of God and not of us. I think I can stop there. Everybody repeat this after me real loud. Say the value in the vessel. Would you say it real loud? Say the value in the vessel. You can have your seats in the presence of the Lord. The value in the vessel. When I looked at what that vessel, Brother Gabe, cost, I said to myself, what do you have? Where would you put? How could you display a vessel actually made out of clay that has been glazed over and pay $6.7 million? Some of us in this room would say to ourselves, what all could I buy that will be not only much larger, but much more useful? If I were just to go down the line, I would say, let's see, probably a lot of property, a nice flat one-story home, a lot of spacious room, a few livestock. I would furnish it with real comfortable furniture. Maybe an automobile or two that I may like to ride in. I would probably, the list goes on and on, that I would probably only spend one portion of that 6.7 and have plenty to invest. What could you, it did not even say that they were putting anything in that vessel. It was just the vessel. I think a lot of people miss out on God's greatness in their life because we have overpriced ourselves, the vessel. We believe that we're more important than we really are. Pastor, are you putting me down? Well, if I were to just go to its lowest common denominator, all of us is just clean dirt. Don't make me go to Genesis on you. All of us is dirt put with a little water to make mud and formed. And before you value your dirt too much, and people do, because we fix it up, expensive jewelry, expensive clothes, expensive. I saw a person not just get their teeth clean, not just get their teeth straightened, but they put jewelry in there. Said to myself, all right, anyway. If you're not careful, you will overvalue the vessel. Don't play with me, because when it's all said and done, you can put this vessel in a $50,000 casket and lower it in the ground, and if they pull you up a little while later, you'll really see. All right. Everybody say the value in the vessel. Paul brings out something because he was actually criticized and made mockery of some other actually false prophets and false apostles during that day. They were talking about his look, his manner, his speech. They couldn't say too much about his knowledge, but they talked bad about him. And so Paul sent this second letter to the church there at Corinth to say, hold on, because I don't speak as eloquent as they do, it does not mean I don't know or God's hand is not on me. He said, because they have, can I say this and y'all won't hold it against me? I know y'all won't, but maybe somebody watching. I think this text brings out something for pastors, for preachers, for parishioners. Be real careful of how high-minded you put yourself. Because if you're not careful, you will think more of yourself than you ought. You will forget about what God has put in you, and you'll shine on the outside. That's why I'm real careful. I'm real critical. Brother Brandon, I'll confess, I'm real critical at these stars and these wonder prophets and preachers, that when they come out, it's almost like they're the star of the moment. You don't impress me because you wear fine clothes, drive luxurious cars, live in large mansions. You don't impress me because you can use Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic language. You don't impress me with any of that, because when it's all said and done, there will be a day when you will realize you're just earthen clay. I'm not impressed. I look on TV, and I'm not saying you ought not honor the man or the woman of God, but I am saying don't ever forget they're earthen vessels. We have to remember that. Everybody say remember that. It's not only the preacher or the pastor, but it's also the parishioner, because Paul says in verse 7, let me bring out a few things if you would allow me to, Sister Jessica. He says, but we have. Everybody say we. Say it like you mean to say we. What that ought to tell you is nobody's left out here. The preacher is not the only person that God has imparted gifts into. We have. Everybody say we. As a matter of fact, would you look at two people and say, you are included? You are included. He says, we have this treasure. Lest you forget, Pastor, what would that treasure be? I don't want to go to that yet, only because some people feel if I just show up for church that I've done my job, but we have. All of us have responsibility. He says we are the container. We are the holder. We are the jar of clay. Whether dirt and water, mud for his use, we have. I don't know why people put so much weight on the preacher and not on themselves. Oh, you know the society do it and the church do it, because when people fail, we want pastor to pray for and forgive and to show mercy. But when preachers fail, folk get the rocks, get the Bible, they talk about them, they put them on social media. I mean, but the fact of the matter is we have this treasure. God has imparted something in all of us. We have. As a matter of fact, there's not only, when you think about it, this container that we have, he puts it in a place, he says, I recognize that you are a vessel, and in verse, actually, I thought about it in verse 8. I think he actually brings it out to remind us we are vessels, because he says hard pressed, perplexed, persecuted, and struck down. Yeah, that simply means you and I both have cracks in our vessel. That simply means no vessel, you and I are never perfect. You can clean it up, shine it up, wash it out, but the fact of the matter, we are all simply clay. And if I were to go Old Testament, he will break that and start over again. He did it with all of us, because if any man be in Christ, we are. All right, y'all with me? Somebody say, yeah. Everybody say the value in the vessel. Paul brings out to them, he says, before you get too crazy, don't let these other apostles, don't let these other prophets, don't let these people get you all wind up. The fact is, none of us are anything more than an earthly clay bottle. But what's in it? We have this treasure. And that, I guess, ought to be the second thing. He says this treasure. What would the treasure be? In particular, for this particular text, it is the knowledge of who God is. It is the knowledge of who Christ is. It is the gift that God has imparted, the Holy Spirit down in us. Not only spiritual, but he has given us also some treasures that are natural. Some of you have some gifts in here that people would be surprised at some of the things you could do. Yeah, that's a treasure that a lot of people keep hidden. I didn't know that everybody didn't. I won't call our names because I don't want to embarrass, but we were gifted, my wife and I, she brought home, my family and I, some sweet potato pie. I didn't know, sister, I didn't know. So don't feel bad if I start asking for and requesting more often sweet potato pie, because I didn't know the gift. All right, see some of y'all, Pastor, who is it? Who is it? Get with me later. I don't want to put that. They may not want to. Some of you have gifts that are treasures that God has imparted into you that you have not been really showing to others. Everybody may not be able to deal with out of your will. That's a gift that you have to not only learn, you can learn that in school or technical school, or you can learn it by the gifting of practicing not only audio but also visual, musically. Different people have. I don't have the same gift as my elder brother, Elder Ricky, has to sing. Now I can hold a note, but there's a difference. If I tried to do some of the runs, some of y'all would run away. But I recognize that's a gift. Everybody say you're a treasure. God has imparted into all of us treasures. I thought about Sister, she doesn't do it as often now. There was a time when she did it often, but Sister Edwards used to do things with her hands, sewing and knitting, and she would make things. And I'm thinking, I start out, just with a piece of string, I don't know what it's called, yarn, or only thing I could do is tie a knot. And then y'all would laugh at me if I tried to sell the knot. Everybody has some kind of gift. You have a treasure that God has put, and let me just put this here as a point. The treasure that God has gifted you with actually speaks volume of your potential in life. You would be surprised at what you could do with that treasure that God has imparted in you. There's a lot of different reasons why those treasures are in our life. The natural ones, I thought about telling somebody, I didn't go off on them, but they thought their giftedness was their physical appearance. And I said to myself, just keep living. If you're putting all your coins on that treasure, give it time. All right, don't make me go down your road. But that treasure not only is natural, but also spiritual. And here Paul brings out this treasure that God has given us is actually the knowledge of who he is, the knowledge of who God is, the knowledge of that we have now been imparted with the Spirit of God. Everybody say the value in the vessel. He says this treasure. It's important, it's valuable because it speaks of that gospel message that is important. So my treasure that I have is not just for me to live good. It's also to help somebody else get them past. Some of you been hiding your treasures. It's hidden. It's almost like a treasure hunt. Can't nobody find it. You give clues at work, but can't nobody find it. You get one clue. Somebody told me one clue. Church was good today. I said, Sunday. I said to myself, and you go to church? You give clues, but it's hidden treasures. Some people there, I talked to somebody, and I didn't know this. A person was telling me how they were good at painting. I said, what? I would have never thought. Pastor, what are you saying? There are some treasures that you have. You've been keeping them hidden too long. Paul says, the treasure that God has given us, stop hiding that treasure. Make sure you recognize, yes, it is in a clay vessel. Yes, it's in us, but it is actually there for the benefit of somebody else. That's why you ought to witness. Everybody say witness. You ought to be a witness. You ought to tell somebody your testimony. On yesterday, while I was out with one of my sisters, we went to visit someone, and got back, and so you all know how I am about riding in a dirty car. And just one of my things, look over my follies. And so I said, before we stop and get something to eat, there's a car wash. I'm going to just go through the car wash. And so went through the car wash, and some of you would probably be surprised. People notice if your vessels are dirty. And so, and it doesn't have to be much. I think I didn't just start it yesterday. My wife would tell you I have a history. Years ago, I don't know if I got it from my father-in-law, who kept his cars clean. He washed them and washed my sister. And so we stopped by this car wash. I went through, and she was sitting in the car, so I got out Sister Haggard, I got out and I just dried it off so that the water spots wouldn't stay on there, because that'll mess up your paint eventually if you, all right, anyway. And so I got out, and so this lady that was drying off her car, she waved. How you doing? How you? I said, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. She said, oh, it's just something about you. And she thought my sister, I don't know how she got this, she thought my sister may have been my significant other. And so I told her, no. Heavens, no. I said, no, that's my sister. She said, oh, okay, I was just waving at her because I didn't want her to think. I said, oh, no, that's my sister. She said, it's just something about you that's there. She says, and so, that was my opportunity. And so I grabbed immediately one of the church flyers, because I didn't try to impede on her time, but when she stopped me, and so I got it, and she said, oh, Mutt, that's what it was. That's what it is. She said, there was something about you that gravitated. I said, oh yeah. And then we began to talk about Thanksgiving and how God had blessed us with our family. Well, what are you saying, preacher? There's something down in you that you ought to let others know that will help them, that will encourage. Everybody say the value in the vessel. He said that value is not the vessel, it's really what God has placed in that vessel. One of the things that's valuable in the vessel is God's presence. If you are a child of God, the Spirit of God lives in you, that's valuable. Because everybody don't have God in them. Yeah, I think it's Mary that says, it's the God in me. It's the people look at you and they see you doing things, but if they only knew it's the God, well, you ought to tell them who it is. You ought to let them know, I didn't get where I am. I don't have what I have on my own merits. It's really because I'm just a vessel. Some of you can testify that God has used you to not only be a blessing for yourself, but others. Because that it's important. What's on the inside of you is the presence of God. He ought to shine out all of the time. People ought to sense there's something different about them. I don't know what it is. They sense something different when you're cussing folk out. They sense something different when you're just giving them attitude. They sense something different if they go short on your paycheck. All that in you start coming out. Ooh, I didn't know they talk like that. All right. I mean, people sense things, but they ought to sense there's something about him, that the presence of God, there's something, and they may not even know or be able to identify a divine presence, but they ought to be able to know there's something different. Yeah. It's really about the value in the vessel. God has given us this important treasure that he says. And the writer, Paul says in 2 Corinthians, he says, and we have this treasure in earthen vessels. And then he starts identifying what it is. He says, we have this treasure that is really the excellence of God. Everybody say the excellence. The excellence of the power of not Terry, not my education, not because I'm able to articulate well, but it ought to be something that people ought to say there's a different spirit about her. There's a different spirit about him, and it's really not them. Have you all, one of the things I love to see sometimes is those little skits of those business owners that go into their business incognito, just to see how business is ran And so I was looking at one, how this person went to this store and they were selling things, and she came in and she didn't have on the nice off outfit and didn't look like she could afford any of the things. And so one young lady went up to her and said, "How could I help you? How could I assist you? What do you like?" And she said, "I'm just looking for something." And so the manager came up and said, "Look, we already know you can't afford this. We already know, we recognize that this is not the store for you. Darling, don't waste your time with people like this." What she was looking at was the clay, the jar. What she didn't know what was inside of it. And so the lady let her finish, and then she introduced herself. The lady said, Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know who you were." And she said, "That's no problem. Don't worry about it. You don't have to know who I am, because from today on, you're fired." See, if you're not, yes, I'm clay. Yes, I'm just a jar. Yes, I'm dirt. But if you don't know who's on the inside of me, you will misuse that I have. He says the jar of clay. The writer here, and I told you all earlier, he really brings it out. Really in verse 8, he talks about how fragile we are, but it ought to really show the power of God in our life. He puts it there. And notice this. This will tell you if you're really used by God, because he recognized how fragile but how powerful he is. He says we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. If it was left to the vessel only, we would be crushed. If it was all about the clay, we would be crushed. But it's something on the inside of it that even though we're pressed, anybody ever been pressed? Yeah, this came and this came and this happened and this happened. But he says, but we are yet not crushed. Everybody say not crushed. He says there's some things that I deal with that are complexities. There are things that I don't understand. There are things that I disagree with. There are things that doesn't make sense. But I'm not in despair. It's not because of the jar. It's because of the power that's in the jar. Verse 9, he goes even further. Paul says, not only am I hard pressed, not only am I perplexed, but I'm also persecuted. Backstab, front stab, side stab. It used to be a time where people would only talk behind your back. But in today's society, they'll talk about you on social media. They'll put your name out there, lie on you. They'll add stuff to it. He says persecuted, but not forsaken. I love that about God, because even though I messed up and you see it, God is saying, I'm still with you. I still got you. What should have been thrown away, I'm keeping it. He goes on, the last one in verse 9 says, and I'm struck down, but not destroyed. I think God wants to bring something to the realization of us that you need to know really who I am in you more than you try to tell people who you are. You need to make sure that you value what's in you more than you value yourself. You need to make sure when I, some people are gifted, but never put your gift past your God. I'll say it again because they missed it. Yes, you're gifted, but never put your gift above God. Because if you put your gift above God, he can remind you you're nothing but dirt put together. You're nothing but clay. And somebody in the room, some of the stuff that you have, if I were to look at verse 8 and verse 9, that you have endured, there are a whole lot of people that have been crushed, they have been destroyed, they have been forsaken, they have been in despair because they didn't have what you have on the inside of them. They gave up a long time ago. And if we had time to testify, many of you in this room could testify if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I realize where I would be. You got to understand the value in, everybody say, the vessel. Well, why does God give us this? Why does God put this precious treasure in such an earthen vessel? I'm going to give you these and then I'm going to be through. One reason is so that he would get the glory. I could just stay right there. One reason, the main reason, is so that he would get the glory. I'm the educated one. I'm the one that studied. I'm the one that go to work every day and make this money. I'm the one that chose this. I'm the one that, and sometimes you have to be reminded you are really nothing more than an earthen vessel. Somebody say an earthen vessel. He says, I want to make sure you know that you are there for my glory. There's another reason. He says, I want to make sure you help somebody else out. Everybody say, help them out. Come on, say it like you mean it. Say, help them out. But Pastor, they're mean to me. They talk about me. They backbite. They lie on me. They cheat. I get it, but you can still help them out. Because God is not going to allow that to crush you. God is not going to allow that to destroy you. God is not going to leave you by yourself. He says, help them out. That was a person that was told about how people had been lying on him, cheating. They wanted to destroy him, take him, get him fired, all of that. And he still did what was right by them. He still he didn't backbite against them. He didn't lie on them. He didn't put stumbling blocks in front of them. And one day, that person needed his help. He could have did like many of us would have did. Oh, really? Now you need me. Now you want me. Instead, I think he took the Job, or rather the Joseph route. He said, no, don't worry about it. What can I do for you? I had that experience once. Brother Brandon had that experience years ago. I worked for the correctional facility years ago. This has been, I think, 1980 something, so I'm dating myself now. I worked there, and there was a particular person who was just mean. I mean mean. He was an offender. He was mean. On top of him being mean, he was paralyzed from the waist down. He's in a wheelchair. He cussed everybody out. Hated everybody. You came by. Oh, your mother and your father. I mean, he said all of the words. He was just mean. And so one day, Brother Smith, we're near the gym, and I'm watching the place around, and this guy rolls up by me and say, psst, psst. Now, I wasn't prayed up. I hadn't went to the Lord early that morning. And so I looked and I said, yeah, what's up? He said, come. I said, oh, he want me to get close. Is he getting ready to do something? I hate to lay hands on her. So when I got close, he did this. Would you pray for me? Can I confess to y'all? I didn't want to. I did not. I said to myself, heavens. Well, I said no, but it wasn't heaven. I said, all right. See, if it was just the earthen vessel, and I didn't recognize the value of what was supposed to be on the inside, I would have allowed his actions to cause me not to do. And from that day, I went ahead and prayed. From that day forward, I never had the same challenge with him. Well, sometimes what God has placed on the inside of you, it is really not for you. It's really to help somebody else, to show somebody else, to bless somebody else. He says, why is it? First, it is to give God glory. Second, it is to bless or to help somebody else. Somebody say help them. This is my last part, because this is what Paul is really saying. The earthen vessel uses this treasure. It is really to spread the gospel. It is really to spread the good news. You ought to be a living testimony. Don't keep your testimony from everybody. Start telling people where God brought you from. Start telling somebody how God brought you out. Start testifying what you didn't have, God blessed you and sustained you to where you are now. He says, this vessel that you are, this vessel that everybody is, he says there's treasure in you. That treasure not only is natural, there's some gifts and potential that God has put in you that you would be surprised of what God will do in your life if you would just allow that treasure to start coming forward. Today I wanted to give you something simple, but something that will bless you if you put it to use. There's value in you. There's value in your vessel. Before we go, I want to give you an opportunity, one, to give your heart to God. It is vital, it's important, and I believe this word has taught you and has reached your heart. Simply say this prayer. Father, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe he died and rose again for my salvation. And according to the scripture, when you say it in sincerity and believe it, you are saved. But then I want to encourage you to become a member of North Houston Church so that you can be encouraged, instructed, lifted, and there will be fellowship. You can do it in person or online. You belong here.